sound of distant thunder, waves crashing softly in the background. Hello and welcome back to our journey through the mysteries of Easter Island. In our last episode, we marveled at the golden age of the Rapa Nui, a time when a thriving society, organized into clans, erected the magnificent Moai, those stone giants that have puzzled the world for centuries. It was an era of ingenuity, spiritual devotion, and remarkable artistic achievement. But every golden age has its twilight, and the story of Rapa Nui is a poignant reminder that even the most vibrant civilizations can face a precipice. Imagine this paradise, once covered in lush palm forests, teeming with life. The trees provided everything: timber for canoes to fish the deep seas, fibers for rope, and logs to help transport the colossal Moai. The soil was fertile, yielding abundant crops of sweet potatoes, taro, and bananas. For generations, the island provided for its people, and in return, the people honored the land and their ancestors with their incredible stone carvings. It seemed like a perfect, self-sustaining world, an isolated Eden in the vastness of the Pacific. But as the population grew, so did the demand for resources. More people meant more mouths to feed, more houses to build, and, crucially, a greater drive to erect more and larger Moai. Each statue was a symbol of a clan's power and prestige, a connection to the divine energy of their ancestors. The competition among clans intensified, leading to a frenzy of statue building. And every single one of these giant projects required an immense amount of one thing: wood. Slowly at first, then with accelerating speed, the forests began to disappear. The great palms, some of which had stood for centuries, were felled one by one. They were used for rollers to move the Moai, for levers to hoist them onto their ahu platforms, for canoes, and for firewood. The islanders, caught in a cycle of religious and political ambition, were consuming their world. They were, quite literally, cutting down the branches they were sitting on. The consequences were catastrophic and unfolded over generations. Without the trees to anchor the soil, the torrential tropical rains washed the rich topsoil into the sea. The ground, once fertile, became barren and eroded. Crop yields plummeted. The land could no longer support the large population it once had. The birds that nested on the island, a vital source of food and eggs, disappeared as their forest habitats vanished. The loss of the forests had another devastating impact. It severed their connection to the ocean. Without large logs, the Rapa Nui could no longer build the sturdy ocean-going canoes they needed for deep-sea fishing. They were confined to the coastline, relying on smaller, less effective watercraft. The bounty of the sea, which had sustained their ancestors, was now largely out of reach. Suddenly, their world, which once felt boundless, had shrunk to the shores of a barren rock. As resources dwindled, the social fabric of the island began to fray. The prosperity and cooperation that had marked their golden age gave way to scarcity and suspicion. Famine, a horror their ancestors had likely never known, became a recurring reality. The very foundation of their society, the clan system, the chiefdoms, the shared spiritual beliefs, started to crumble under the immense pressure. The island paradise was becoming a prison. In the face of starvation and desperation, conflict was inevitable. The competition that had once been expressed through building grander Moai now turned violent. Archaeological evidence points to a dark period of civil war, what the Rapa Nui oral traditions call the Huri Moai, or the statue-toppling era. Clans turned on one another, raiding villages for what little food remained. The ultimate act of desecration was to topple the rivals' Moai. Imagine the psychological impact of this. These statues were not just stone. They were the living faces of the ancestors, the protectors of the clans. To pull them down, to smash their coral eyes, was to declare that their spiritual power, their mana, was gone. It was a brutal and symbolic act, signifying the complete collapse of the old order. Many Moai we see today, lying face down, broken and abandoned, are silent witnesses to this terrible conflict. The very symbols of their greatness became casualties of their decline. During this period of turmoil, a new belief system emerged, centered around the Tangata Manu, or the Birdman cult. The focus shifted from ancestral worship to a brutal annual competition. Each year, representatives from the remaining clans would gather at the sacred village of Orongo, perched on the edge of a dramatic volcanic crater. Their challenge was to swim through shark-infested waters to the nearby islet of Motu Nui, retrieve the first sooty tern egg of the season, and bring it back intact. The man who succeeded, or whose champion succeeded on his behalf, was named the Tangata Manu for that year. He was considered sacred and held immense power and privilege until the next competition. This new ritual reflected the harsh new reality of life on the island. It was a desperate gamble for survival and power, a winner-take-all contest where strength and endurance replaced lineage and ancestral favor. The intricate carvings at Orongo, depicting half-man, half-bird figures, tell the story of this new, more desperate faith that arose from the ashes of the old one. By the time the first European explorers arrived in 1722, the Rapa Nui civilization was a shadow of its former self. The visitors described a sparse population living on a desolate, treeless landscape, struggling to survive. They were bewildered by the contrast between the impoverished state of the people and the magnificent, abandoned statues that dotted the island. They couldn't comprehend how such a small, struggling community could have created such monumental works. The story of Easter Island is a profound and cautionary tale. It's a story of human ingenuity and spiritual devotion, but also of unintended consequences and ecological collapse. The Rapa Nui weren't short-sighted or foolish. They were a complex society acting according to their deeply held beliefs, trapped in a system of competitive escalation that ultimately consumed the very resources their survival depended on. Their legacy is left to us in the form of those haunting stone faces, the Moai. They are not just archaeological puzzles. They are sentinels of time, forever gazing inland. They stand as a silent, powerful warning, a message carried across the centuries about the delicate balance between human ambition and the limits of our environment. They ask us to look at our own world, our own consumption of resources, and ponder whether we are heeding the lessons etched in the stone of this remote, enigmatic island. Thank you for joining me on this leg of our journey. The story of Easter Island is far from over. In our next episode, we'll explore the arrival of outsiders and the further tragedies that befell the Rapa Nui, leading to their near extinction. It's a story of resilience in the face of unimaginable hardship. If you found this journey fascinating, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. See you then.